After 15 years of raising my daughter alone, she got married without inviting me, then said her husband didn't want pathetic people there. She cut me off, called me controlling. When her world collapsed, she came crawling back. But it was too late. Hey Reddit, I'm not the kind of man who talks about feelings, but if you knew what I went through, you'd understand why I'm writing this. My name's David, 55 male, and 15 years ago, my entire world flipped when my wife Sarah died in a car accident. One second she was driving home from work. The next I was standing in a hospital hallway, staring at a white sheet over her body. My daughter Emily was 11 then. She didn't fully grasp it that night, but I did. I knew from that moment on I had one job: raise that little girl right, no matter what it took. The first few years after Sarah's death were rough. I'd work during the day, come home, cook dinner, help Emily with her homework, and still find time to sit by her bed until she fell asleep. Some nights, I'd be so tired I'd doze off in her chair with my work shirt still on. But every time she smiled, it made all of it worth it. She looked more and more like her mom every year. Same deep brown eyes, same quiet strength in her voice. Sometimes she'd walk into a room, and for half a second, I'd swear it was Sarah standing there. Emily was everything. My reason for showing up every day. My pride. My joy. I pushed her, but never in a cruel way. I wanted her to make something of herself. I used to tell her, if you've got brains, use them. Don't waste your life trying to impress idiots. Maybe that's what made her tough. She always aimed high. I wanted her to be a doctor or a dentist. Something solid, respected. And she did it. She graduated top of her class in dental school. I still remember sitting there in that auditorium, surrounded by other proud parents, clapping so hard my hands hurt. When they called her name, Dr. Emily Carter, my chest felt like it might explode. That night, she posted a picture on Facebook of us hugging. Her caption read, "Couldn't have done it without my dad." I read that line about 50 times. I screenshotted it. That moment was everything I'd worked for. Every night shift, every sacrifice, every lonely birthday. All of it finally made sense. A few months after she graduated, I decided to do something big for her. I'd been saving for years, thinking maybe I'd retire early or buy a small place by the lake. Instead, I bought her a house. A beautiful 3-bedroom place. $220,000. Paid in full, under my name. I told her it was her head start, her safety net. So you never have to worry about rent, I said. She cried when I gave her the keys. Hugged me tight. That night, we had dinner in her empty living room, pizza boxes on the floor, and she kept saying, "You're the best dad ever." I'll never forget that. For the first year, everything felt perfect. She'd call me almost every day. We'd grab dinner on weekends, watch movies like we used to, laugh about dumb stuff. She'd tell me about her new patients, her coworkers, her life, and the headaches of getting her own clinic off the ground. I felt like Sarah would have been proud, like I'd done right by both of them. But then something started to change. Slowly, quietly. At first, it was little things. She'd cancel dinner plans last minute. Texts got shorter. Calls got rarer. She'd say she was busy a lot. I brushed it off, figured she was just adjusting to adult life. But when she did come by, it wasn't the same. She'd look around my place like she didn't belong there anymore. When I'd ask about her work, she'd give half answers, more polite than warm. One time I brought up how much she reminded me of her mom. Same voice, same eyes, and she stiffened up, changed the subject. That stung more than I expected. I remember sitting in my truck outside her house one afternoon, dropping off some stuff she left at mine. She didn't even come out, just told me to leave it by the door. She was on a call. I sat there for a minute, looking at the place I bought for her, thinking how strange it felt that I needed permission to visit. Something was off. The warmth, the connection. It all felt like it was fading, piece by piece. I tried not to overthink it, but late at night, when the house got quiet, I'd sit there staring at the old photos on the mantle, the three of us smiling, Sarah's hand on Emily's shoulder. And I couldn't shake this feeling that I was losing her too. I told myself it was just a phase. She was busy, grown up now, living her own life. But somewhere deep down, I knew better. Something between us was changing, and for the first time in 15 years, I had no idea how to fix it. Emily stopped coming around as much. The weekly dinners turned into once a month, then every few months, until they stopped completely. When she did show up, it felt like she was doing me a favor. She'd sit at the table, scrolling through her phone, half listening while I talked. I remember one night clear as day. I'd cooked her favorite meal, roast chicken with mashed potatoes, same recipe her mom used to make. She came over, sat down, looked at the plate, and said, "You use too much salt." Then she grabbed her phone and started typing away while I was trying to tell her about a project I was doing around the house. I asked, "You okay? You've been quiet lately." She sighed like I was bothering her. "Dad, can you not read into everything? You always make small stuff feel dramatic." I laughed a little, trying to keep things light. "I'm just talking to you, kiddo. I'm not asking for a kidney." She rolled her eyes, muttering, "You're too sensitive," then went back to texting. That was the moment I realized something was really wrong. She wasn't just busy, she was different, cold, detached, and I didn't know who she was becoming. I tried to be patient. I told myself she was working long hours, maybe just tired, but months kept passing, and the space between us grew wider. When I called, she'd pick up with, "Hey Dad, I'm in the middle of something. Can I call you later?" Later never came. I'd drive past her house sometimes after work. The lights would be on. A car I didn't recognize parked in the driveway. Once, I thought about knocking, just to say hi, but something stopped me. I didn't want to be that dad who couldn't let go. Then came that Tuesday morning, the day everything changed. It was around 8. I was at my desk, sipping coffee, checking emails. Then, out of habit, I opened Facebook. I scrolled for a minute, funny posts, a coworker's vacation photos, and then my stomach dropped. There it was, a photo of Emily in a white wedding dress, standing on a beach, kissing some guy I'd met once or twice. The caption read, "Best day of my life, married to my soulmate." For a second, I thought it was a joke. I blinked, refreshed the page. My heart started pounding. Married? How? When? To who? My hands started shaking so bad I almost dropped my phone. I stared at the screen, reading the comments. "Congratulations! You two look amazing. Wishing you a lifetime of happiness." All strangers. Not one mention of me. I called her. Straight to voicemail. I called again. And again. 5 times. On the 6th try, she finally answered. "Dad, what?" Her voice sounded irritated, like I'd interrupted something important. "What?" I repeated. "You got married, Emily? You didn't tell me? You didn't invite me?" There was a pause. A long one. Then she sighed. "Marcus didn't think it was a good idea." My chest tightened. "Marcus? The guy from that clinic dinner last year?" "Yeah," she said flatly. "He's my husband now." I tried to stay calm. "Why wouldn't it be a good idea to have your father at your wedding?" "Because you'd make it about you," she snapped. "You always do." "You're controlling, Dad. You can't stand when I make decisions without you." I froze. Controlling? Emily, I supported every decision you've ever made. I paid for your schooling, your house. There it is, she cut in. You always bring that up. You think money means you own me? Marcus said you'd do this. I sat back, staring at the wall. Marcus said what? That you'd make me feel guilty. That you'd try to take credit for my life? He's right. You can't just let me be happy without reminding me what you've done for me. Emily, I said quietly, I never asked for credit. I just wanted to be there. You're my daughter. Marcus doesn't want you around, she said, voice colder now. He thinks you're pathetic, always trying to control everything. And honestly, I kind of agree. The room went silent. I couldn't even breathe. Pathetic? I repeated, the word barely coming out. You really think that about me? I think you need to stop acting like my life revolves around you, she said. I'm married now. I don't need you involved in everything. Yeah, I tried to speak, but my throat felt locked. The phone felt heavy in my hand. Emily, I said finally, everything I ever did was for you. I know, she said almost dismissively, but I didn't ask you to. She hung up. I just sat there, phone pressed to my ear even after the line went dead. I don't know how long I stayed like that. Maybe minutes, maybe an hour. When I finally set the phone down, my hands were trembling. I kept hearing her voice in my head. Pathetic. Controlling. Marcus doesn't want you around. For 15 years, she'd been my reason for everything. Every sacrifice, every late night, every choice I made, all for her. Now she was gone. Not in the way Sarah was gone. This was worse. Because this time she chose it. I didn't sleep that night. I just sat there staring at my phone, waiting for it to ring, hoping she'd call and say it was all a mistake. She didn't. By sunrise, I made up my mind. I wasn't going to sit around wondering what happened. I was going to talk to her face to face. The drive to her place felt longer than usual. Every streetlight and stop sign blurred together. I remembered when we first bought the house, how she picked the color of the shutters, how proud she looked standing by the sold sign. I'd told her, this house is yours, but remember, my name's on the paperwork until you're ready. It felt strange thinking those words now. When I pulled up, her car was parked outside. There were wedding decorations still hanging from the porch rail, like the celebration had just ended. My stomach tightened. I stepped out of the truck, walked up the path, and rang the bell. It felt weird, knocking on a door I technically owned. My own daughter's door. After a few seconds, the door opened. Marcus stood there, barefoot, wearing a smug grin like he'd been waiting for me. "Oh, it's you," he said, leaning against the frame. "Didn't expect you to drop by uninvited." "I need to talk to my daughter," I said, keeping my tone calm. He shrugged. "She's busy. Probably doesn't want to see you after yesterday." "Move," I said, stepping forward. He smirked. "Relax, man. Emily's not a little girl anymore. You need to stop hovering. Let her live her life." I looked him dead in the eye. "I'm not here for your advice." He laughed under his breath. "That's your problem. You think being her dad gives you control forever. She told me how you guilt trip her, how you make her feel bad for growing up." I clenched my jaw. "You don't know a damn thing about what I've done for her." He folded his arms. "Sure I do. You bought her a house, right? And now you think that means she owes you something. Sounds like control to me." Before I could answer, Emily appeared behind him. She was wearing a robe. The sight of her hit me. Then her expression hardened. "Dad, what are you doing here?" she said, voice cold. "I came to talk to you. You got married without telling me. I think I at least deserve an explanation." She crossed her arms. "We already talked on the phone." "No," I said firmly. "You insulted me on the phone. That's not the same." Marcus chuckled, and I shot him a glare. "This doesn't concern you, Marcus. I'm talking to my daughter." He raised his eyebrows. "Everything about Emily concerns me now. I'm her husband." Emily stepped closer to him, like she needed backup. "Dad, stop talking to him like that." I looked between them, trying to understand what I was seeing. "Is this really what you want, Emily? A man who talks down to your father in his own house?" She shook her head. "You don't get it, do you? You've always treated me like I'm still that 11-year-old kid who needed you for everything. I'm not her anymore. And I'm not Mom either." That last part hit me like a brick. "What's that supposed to mean?" She stared right at me. "You've been trying to replace her with me since she died. It's creepy, Dad. You need to stop." For a second, I couldn't even breathe. "You think I see you as your mother?" I said slowly. "You think I spent 15 years working myself into the ground because I wanted a replacement? I did it because you're my daughter, because I wanted you to have a good life." Marcus laughed quietly. "See? There it is. Always making it about himself." I turned toward him. "You know what I see when I look at you, Marcus. A man who couldn't build a life on his own, so he latched onto someone who already had one." His smirk faded. "You need to leave." "Or what?" I asked. "You gonna make me?" He stepped forward, trying to look tough. "Don't test me, old man." I didn't think. I just reacted. My fist connected with his jaw before he could say another word. He stumbled back into the doorway, holding his face, eyes wide. "Dad!" Emily shouted. Marcus straightened, face red, fists clenched like he wanted to swing back but didn't dare. "You're insane," he spat. Emily rushed to him, checking his face, glaring at me like I was the enemy. "You need to leave, Dad. Right now." I looked at her, my chest tight. "After everything I've done for you, this is who you defend?" She crossed her arms again. "I'm defending my husband. You don't get to treat him like that." I stared at her for a moment. The woman I'd raised, the little girl who used to run to me after nightmares, and I didn't recognize her. "You've changed," I said quietly, "and not for the better." "Maybe I finally grew up," she shot back. Marcus smirked again, wiping blood from his lip. "Guess the control freak couldn't handle losing." I stepped off the porch, looked back one last time and said, "You might have fooled her for now, Marcus. But give it time, you'll trip over your own lies." Emily shouted something behind me, but I didn't turn around. I just kept walking to my truck. When I started the engine, my reflection in the rearview mirror barely looked like me. Just a man who'd spent half his life building something that shattered in front of him. I didn't drive off angry. I drove off disappointed, because the daughter I raised wasn't standing in that doorway anymore. And I had no idea if I'd ever see her again. When I got home that night, I didn't turn the lights on. I just sat at my desk in the dark, staring at the glow of the computer screen. My knuckles were sore, my chest felt hollow, and my head was spinning. I kept replaying her face, her words, how easily she stood next to that man and called me creepy. I'd given her everything, everything. Around midnight, I opened a notepad and started typing. Not a letter, just a list. House, insurance, car, phone, bank account, credit line, health coverage, every tie that still connected me to Emily. There were more than I realized. I scrolled through each item, line by line, realizing just how much of her life still ran through me. Property taxes, car insurance, her clinic's equipment loan, co-signed under my name. Every month, I'd been quietly covering things she probably thought appeared out of thin air. By the time I finished the list, I felt calm. Too calm. Like something inside me had stopped burning and turned into stone. Then my phone buzzed. It was my sister Carol. I hesitated before picking up. We hadn't talked much lately, but I figured maybe she'd heard what happened and wanted to check on me. David, she started, her voice soft like she was stepping into a minefield. I talked to Emily today. Of course she did. She told me you showed up at her house. That you punched her husband, Carol said carefully. What's going on? I sighed. You want her version or the truth? I want to understand, she said. She's upset. She says you're not letting her live her life. I leaned back in my chair. Carol, I raised that girl alone. I paid for her school, her home, her car, everything. And the man she married, he's manipulating her. You should have seen how he talks to her, how he treats me like I'm the problem. There was a pause. Then she said it. Maybe he's not wrong, David. I froze. What? You've always been protective, controlling even. I know you love her, but maybe you went too far. She's married now. You can't keep running her life. I laughed bitterly. Running her life? Carol, I gave her a foundation. I made sure she never had to struggle like we did growing up. You call that control? She sighed. I'm just saying. Maybe she needs space to make her own mistakes. You have to let her go. For a moment, I didn't even know what to say. My own sister was siding with the people who'd just humiliated me. Let her go, I repeated. You know what, Carol? You're right. She sounded relieved. I'm glad you see that. I smirked. No, you don't get it. I'm going to let her go completely. There was silence on the other end. What do you mean? You'll see, I said, and hung up. I stared at the list again, my cursor blinking on the screen like it was waiting for a command. My hand moved before I even thought about it. First, the bank account. A shared account I'd been putting money into since she was in college. Around $30,000 now. I logged in and transferred every cent to my personal savings. Watching the balance drop to zero gave me a sense of finality I didn't expect. Next, her car insurance. I'd kept it under my policy for years. I called the company, told them to remove her name immediately. Sir, if we do that, her vehicle will no longer be covered, the rep said politely. That's the idea, I replied, and hung up. Then her health insurance, the standalone policy I'd been paying for since she finished school, her phone plan, her credit card backup I'd been listed on since she was a student. I stopped the auto pay I'd been covering every month and removed myself anywhere I was the primary. The clinic equipment loan I'd co-signed would just have to bill her directly from now on. By morning, Emily Carter's world would look very different. When I got to the last item, the house, I paused. That one stung. I opened the file cabinet and pulled out the deed. My name, clear as day, sat right at the top. I'd told her we'd transfer it eventually, but we never did. I guess some part of me wanted to feel like she still needed me. Not anymore. I picked up the phone and called Patricia, my realtor. She answered after 2 rings. David, it's been a while, she said cheerfully. What can I do for you? I need to list a property, I said. The house on Willow Street. There was a pause. Wait, Emily's house? It's still in my name, I said. I want it on the market immediately. She hesitated. Are you sure? I thought that was your graduation gift to her. Was, I said flatly. She must have heard the tone in my voice because she didn't argue again. Okay, I'll draft the paperwork and have it ready tomorrow. We should be able to list it for around $250,000 in this market. Perfect, I said, and hung up. I served notice through Patricia. They stayed while it was on the market, then had 30 days to vacate after closing. It wasn't personal. It was business now. I sat there for a minute, staring at the empty coffee mug on my desk. I should have felt guilty, maybe even heartbroken, but instead, I just felt done. Done being the villain in her story. Done being the wallet everyone expected to stay open forever. My phone buzzed again. This time, a text from Emily. I heard you talk to Aunt Carol. Are you proud of yourself? I didn't reply. I didn't owe her that anymore. Instead, I opened a new message window and typed the only thing I had left to say. You said you wanted independence. Now you have it. Take care of yourself. I hit send, turned off my phone, and leaned back in the chair. For the first time in years, the silence in my house didn't feel empty. It felt peaceful. That peace lasted 2 days. On the 3rd morning, a white envelope showed up in my mailbox with County Court stamped across the top. I opened it right there on the porch. Inside were legal papers. Marcus had filed a harassment complaint against me. Physical assault resulting in emotional distress. He'd even attached photos of his bruised jaw. I actually laughed when I read it. The man got one punch for pushing me around and suddenly wanted to play the victim. I called the number listed for the clerk handling the complaint. He told me it was a civil filing, not criminal. He's looking for money, the clerk said plainly. You can settle privately or take it to court. I went about my day like nothing happened. But that night, around 7, I heard a car pull up outside. Headlights flashed through my window. I looked out. Emily's car. And right next to her, Marcus, stepping out in his usual smug fashion, holding a folder. I didn't move at first. Part of me wanted to let them stand out there in the cold. But curiosity won. I opened the door before they could knock. Emily spoke first. Her tone rehearsed. Dad, can we talk? Depends on what about, I said, crossing my arms. Marcus stepped forward slightly, pretending to sound calm. We don't want this to get ugly, David. I think we can all be adults here. I stared at him. You filed a harassment claim against me, and you're standing on my porch asking for adult conversation? He smiled that fake peacekeeper smile. Look, emotions ran high. I get it. You were upset. You hit me. But we can move past it. He opened the folder and pulled out a paper. All I'm asking for is compensation. A fair number to put this behind us. Emily looked nervous, glancing between us. We don't want to drag this out, Dad. Marcus just wants closure. Closure, I repeated, letting the word hang in the air. And what's the price of this closure? Marcus flipped the paper around. $2,000. That covers medical costs and emotional damages. You pay it, we withdraw the complaint. I just looked at him, silent. My face gave away nothing. Inside, my patience was thinning. Emily, though, she couldn't even meet my eyes. I leaned against the doorframe and said quietly, You two rehearsed this? Marcus straightened up. I'm trying to handle this like an adult, David. You don't want a court date. The papers are ready. You pay, we move on. For a few seconds, I didn't say anything. Then I nodded slowly. All right. Emily blinked. Wait, really? Sure, I said casually. If that's what it takes for you two to sleep better at night, fine. Give me a second. I turned and walked inside. My heart was pounding, but my face stayed calm. I went to my desk, opened the bottom drawer, and pulled out an envelope I kept for emergencies. When I stepped outside, both of them looked relieved. Marcus even smiled like he'd just won. I held the envelope between my fingers. Here, I said, walking closer. He reached out to take it, but right when his hand came close, I let it slip from my fingers. The envelope hit the porch and landed by his shoes. The sound was small, but it hit harder than a punch. He hesitated, then bent down and picked it up, along with the release form he'd brought. I watched him sign it right there, his jaw tight, before I handed him the envelope. Emily stood frozen, eyes wide. I looked at them both and said, calm and sharp, You two wanted to treat me like trash. Here's your payment for doing such a good job at it. Marcus didn't answer. He just shoved the signed paper back in the folder and walked off the porch, face red. She looked up at me, her voice trembling. Dad, you didn't have to. I cut her off. Oh, I had to. You wanted independence, remember? Well, independence costs something. You made your choice. Marcus opened his mouth, but I stepped closer, just enough for him to feel small again. And Marcus, I said evenly, you file another paper, show up at my house, or say my name in public again. I'll make sure your little emotional damages feel a lot more physical next time. He didn't say a word, just glared and grabbed Emily's hand. She looked at me one last time, eyes full of shame. Then they walked off the porch, got in the car, and drove away without looking back. I stood there until their taillights disappeared. The night was cold and quiet. When I finally stepped back inside, I locked the door, leaned against it, and exhaled. My hand was shaking, not from anger, but from the kind of finality that changes something deep inside you. They'd tried to turn me into a paycheck, and I'd just shown them what it looked like when the money ran out. For the first time, I didn't feel like the pathetic man they said I was. I felt like myself again. It was finally over, or at least, I thought it was. Months passed after that last confrontation. The court claim vanished. Marcus withdrew it. Maybe that envelope full of money had been enough to bruise his ego more than the punch ever did. Either way, silence followed, and for once I welcomed it. I started focusing on my own life again. Therapy every Wednesday at 5 p.m. Gardening on weekends. I rebuilt the shed out back, something I'd been putting off for years. It felt good to sweat for myself again instead of someone else's comfort. Old friends I hadn't spoken to in forever started calling me back. We grabbed lunch, shared stories. I stopped feeling like the sad widower who lived for his daughter. For the first time in years, I was living for me. Then came that rainy evening. It was late, probably close to 9 p.m. I was halfway through fixing a shelf when I heard it. 3 faint knocks on the door. Slow, hesitant. I wasn't expecting anyone. When I opened it, I froze. Emily stood there, drenched from the rain, her hair plastered to her face, clutching her phone like it was the only thing keeping her together. She looked thinner, too thin. Her cheeks were sunken, her eyes swollen and red, like she hadn't slept in days. For a second, I couldn't move. "Papa," she whispered. The word hit me harder than I expected. I hadn't heard her call me that since she was maybe 14. "Please, can we talk?" I didn't answer right away. I just looked at her. The same girl I once carried on my shoulders at the park, now standing in front of me like a stranger begging to be let inside. Finally, I stepped back. "Come in." She walked past me, dripping rain onto the floor. The living room light made her look even smaller. She sat on the edge of the couch, shivering, twisting her hands together. I didn't sit right away. I just stood there, arms crossed. "You look terrible," I said bluntly. She gave a short, broken laugh. "Yeah, I know. What happened?" Her lips trembled. For a second, she tried to speak, but nothing came out. Then the words started tumbling. Messy, raw. "Marcus. He wasn't who I thought he was," she began, her voice shaking. After the house was sold and the money stopped, everything changed. He started yelling at me all the time, calling me stupid for believing you'd keep supporting us. He said I ruined his life by not getting the deed transferred before you pulled out. I stayed silent, watching her carefully. "He controlled everything," she continued. "Who I talked to, where I went, what I spent. He made me delete my social media, told me you were trying to manipulate me, that you wanted me to fail without you so I'd come crawling back." Her breathing hitched. And I believed him. God, I believed him. She wiped her eyes, her voice breaking again. Then he found out there was no money, no house, nothing left for him to take. He completely changed. Started going out without telling me. Stopped coming home. 2 weeks ago, I found out he'd been seeing someone else. Someone whose father owns a dental chain. He moved out the next day. The words hung heavy in the room. Rain pattered against the windows like it was listening too. I sat down across from her, elbows on my knees. "So now you're here." She nodded, tears streaming down her face. "I didn't know where else to go. You were right about him. About everything." She covered her face with her hands. "And I treated you like garbage. I let him twist everything you ever did for me. I said horrible things. I don't expect you to forgive me. I needed to say I'm sorry." I leaned back, exhaling slowly. Part of me wanted to yell, to tell her how badly she'd broken me, but another part just stared at her, the broken version of the daughter I used to know, and realized life had already done the yelling for me. She looked up at me through tears. "You warned me, Papa," and I didn't listen. Hearing that word again, Papa, did something to me. I'd built up this armor over the last few months, and that single word cracked it just enough to sting. I stood up and walked to the window, needing space to think. Behind me, her voice trembled. "I don't expect things to go back to how they were. I wanted you to know that I know now. That you were never controlling. That you were trying to protect me. I didn't turn around right away. Took you long enough to figure that out." "I know," she whispered. "I hate myself for it." When I finally turned, she was still crying, hands in her lap, shoulders shaking. I'd seen her cry before, when she broke her arm at 8 when Sarah died, but never like this. This wasn't guilt, it was realization. I walked over and sat down beside her. She looked up, eyes red. I didn't say anything. I didn't reach out. I just sat there. After a long silence, I said quietly, "You're right. I warned you." She nodded slowly. "And I paid for not listening." I looked at her. "Yeah, you did." She sniffed, wiping her face with her sleeve. "I'm sorry, Papa. I really am." I took a deep breath, steady and controlled. "I know you are." I stayed quiet, because for the first time, it wasn't my turn to fix things. It was hers. I looked at her, this grown woman who used to cling to my hand crossing the street, and I knew what needed to be said. "Emily," I started quietly, "I believe you're sorry. I really do." She looked up, hope flickering in her eyes. But I didn't let her mistake it for forgiveness. "But that doesn't fix anything," I continued. "Sorry doesn't rebuild trust. It doesn't erase the things you said. The way you looked at me like I was nothing." Her lips trembled. "I know, but..." I raised a hand slightly. "Let me finish." She nodded, tears pooling again. "For me," I said, "forgiveness isn't words. It's trust. And that's gone. You broke it. I don't know if I'll ever get it back." She pressed her hand to her chest. "So you're saying you'll never forgive me?" "I'm saying maybe not now. Maybe not ever. I don't know. But I'm done pretending everything's fine just because you're crying." The words came out firm, steady. Not cruel. Just honest. Her shoulders slumped as she whispered, I deserve that. I leaned back, keeping my voice level. You need to rebuild your life without me as a safety net. No money. No calls asking for help. No showing up every time things get hard. If you want a new start, then start it the way adults do, by standing on your own. She looked at me, eyes wide and desperate. You mean you're cutting me off completely? I nodded. For now, yes. I'll always answer if it's life or death, but I'm not rescuing you from your own choices anymore. You want to prove you've changed? Live differently. On your own terms, not mine. She began to cry harder, shaking her head. I don't want your money, I just want you back. I just want my dad. That hit me in a place I didn't think existed anymore. I swallowed, trying to keep my voice steady. I'm still your dad, I said quietly. I'll always be that. But love doesn't mean I have to let you hurt me again. I wish I could undo it. So do I said. But that's not how real life works. For a while, neither of us spoke. I could see the reflection of her face in the glass. Broken, ashamed, young again somehow. I stood up. Come on, I said gently. I'll walk you out. She looked startled. You're sending me away? I'm letting you go, I corrected. She wiped her cheeks, nodding slowly, and stood. Her shoes squeaked on the hardwood floor as we walked to the door. I grabbed a towel from the coat rack and handed it to her. She smiled faintly through tears. You still worry about me, she said. I gave a small nod. Worry doesn't stop overnight. When I opened the door, the cold air rushed in, carrying the smell of wet pavement. The rain hadn't stopped completely. It fell in thin sheets, steady but gentle. She stepped onto the porch and turned back to me. Papa, she said softly, I'll make things right, even if it takes years. I forced myself to stay still. Then start now, I said. She nodded, tears mixing with the rain. I love you. I know, I said quietly. I always will. She turned and walked down the steps. Her figure disappeared into the dark, the sound of her footsteps fading under the rain. Cutting her off wasn't about revenge or pride. It was survival. I couldn't keep being the man everyone leaned on until there was nothing left of him. Sometimes being a parent means holding your kid's hand. Other times, it means letting it go, no matter how much it breaks you. A few months later, Emily started to rebuild her life piece by piece. She found a small apartment closer to her new job and picked up extra shifts to stay busy. She sent me a message now and then, not long texts, just short updates. Hope you're doing okay, Dad. She never pushed for more than I was ready to give, and I respected that. Sometimes she'd drop by, leave a small bag of groceries on my porch, and drive off before I could even say thank you. It wasn't much, but it was enough. I could see she was trying to stand on her own this time, not to impress anyone, but because she wanted to. For the first time, I didn't see my daughter as the kid I needed to protect. I saw her as a woman learning how to rise from her own mistakes. And that was enough for me. YouTube just dropped this new hype feature. If you're hooked on this story, smash that hype button. It tells YouTube this video deserves to blow up, and it keeps even crazier stories coming your way.